Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and verse 1 through 14. Ecclesiastes, which is a very, very interesting book of the Bible, and known in the Hebrew Bible as Koheleth, which means preacher. So your Bible probably says Ecclesiastes or the preacher, the words of the preacher, who was, of course, more than a preacher, was also a king. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 1 through 14. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit hath a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh. But the earth abideth forever. The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, hasteth to his place where he arose. The wind goeth toward the south, turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again, according to his circuits. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. All things are full of labor. Man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. The new thing that hath been, it is that which shall be. And that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It hath been already of old time, which was before us. There is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. The preacher was king over Israel in Jerusalem, and I gave my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. This sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity, vexation of spirit. Have you ever felt like your life was kind of like that Groundhog Day movie? You know which one I'm talking about? This one. Round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. Or as this book says, there's this very interesting word, hevel. Hevel, hevel in the Hebrew. Hevel, hevel, all is hevel. Hevel is the Hebrew word for vapor. It says life is just like a vapor. It's like you just cannot quite catch it, and it's just always the same old thing, different day, again and again and again. You get up in the morning and you go to work, and you come home at night and you eat supper and you go to bed. You get up tomorrow and you go and do the same thing over and over again. And people, we all know people who work their whole lives in view of retirement, and then they didn't make it. It's like rats on a treadmill, going and going and going. Hevel, hevel, all is hevel. It just doesn't seem to make any sense, this life. It's just vapor. This translation says vexation of spirit. or you could also say a chasing after the wind or striving after the wind. You're trying to catch the wind, but where's the wind going? It comes from here, it goes to there, it comes back around, and it does it again. Over and over and over again it goes. It's a really rather depressing book when you get right down to it. And but people have a hard time, admitting that there's depressing books in the Bible, but this is one of them. But there are parts of the book that are very beloved. To everything to every time there is a season and a time under heaven. You know that? The Byrds wrote a song about it. We sing it, or we say it at funerals a lot. A time to die. Even that's a rather depressing thought when you think about it. What is this life really about? Round and round it goes. Where it stops, no one knows. In some sense, I think that he's, in a way, kind of poking fun at the worldviews of his day. You have to understand a little bit about Hebrew philosophy as versus the philosophies of the people that lived around them at the time. Back then, everybody except the Jews believed in reincarnation. A lot of people still do. You may know some of them who actually believe in reincarnation. You know what I mean by reincarnation? You live your life, and you go through these cycles, around and around and around. And you watch the cycles of the seasons. Life just goes around, and it comes back around again, And you do this whole season until you die, and then you die, but then you come back. And you come back as a bug, or a lizard, or a frog, or a dog, or you keep hopefully doing it, and you do it a little better each time, and so you go up a little more each time until you finally make it to nirvana, or somewhere like that. The people in the Canaanite religions around them, they were all, the pagans around them, believed in what they call a cyclical view of history. And that is that history repeats itself over and over and over again. It's just an endless cycle of repeating events. Have you heard people say that? History repeats itself? It's not really true. Some events may happen that are similar to other events that happened long ago in the past, but they're not exactly the same events. But there are those, and especially Eastern worldviews, that teach in a cyclical view of history that there's just goes around and around and around. It doesn't really have any ultimate purpose, this life. Jews didn't think that way. For Jews, and coincidentally, we Christians, as their spiritual descendants, they had a linear view of history. That is, history had a beginning, and history will have an end. It's all on a timeline. It's a linear view. And so it's interesting that a Jew or a Hebrew could have written something like this with this kind of cyclical way of thinking. Have you been at a place in your life when it seemed kind of futile? When it seemed like you were just striving and striving and not getting anywhere? If you follow this book, what he does, at first, he goes through all of the different things that he has done to try and find meaning in life. First of all, wisdom. I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can. Some of us have been down that road. Now, I believe strongly in education. I think education is a wonderful thing. It's a fine thing. I myself now have altogether, I shudder to think of this, 24 years, counting kindergarten through 12th grade. That would actually be 25. K through 12, the 12 years between bachelor's degrees and master's degrees and doctor's degrees. I've been in school 25 years. Don't ask me how old I am, because I haven't been to school half of my life. But I've learned a lot of things along the way. But after a while, you get to a place where you think, is this all there is? You just keep learning more and more and more stuff. What are you going to do with all that information? And he did that. He tried to find meaning in life through wisdom. And there are a lot of people who spend their entire life striving after knowledge and wisdom, trying to find meaning in life. And they don't actually quite find it. He moved on from there to pleasure. We probably know a lot of people like that. Some of us here may have been that way. In fact, some of us here may be that way now. Trying to find meaning in life through pleasure. And I mean sensual pleasures. One of the main features of addictions, alcoholism, drug addictions, and that sort of thing, it begins innocently enough, usually. Somebody tells you that you're going to try something and it's going to make you feel good. It's going to make you feel better than you would just naturally and normally. And then you try it, and the next thing you know, you're hooked and you can't stop. And then it becomes an endless cycle, very similar to this. Round and around it goes. You get on this kind of little wheel of a thing that goes around and around. And the more you try to stop, the more you have to do. And you seek after pleasure, and you get addicted to drugs, you get addicted to alcohol, you get addicted to sexual pleasures and various things that people like to go after to try to find meaning in life. But they never do, because meaning isn't found in those things. Or maybe one that we probably all have been guilty of, and that is trying to find meaning in our work. We men are especially bad about that one. Men, you meet another man, you ever done this? You meet another man for the first time, you get to know his name, and what's the first thing you ask him? What do you do? Hey, what do you do? Well, I'm a preacher, what do you do? What? Yeah, and men especially are bad about that. And now, and it's gotten to where now with the expansion of the workplace that more and more women are falling into that trap as well. Defining themselves and trying to find meaning in life according to their careers, according to what they do for a living. This is what I do. Here's some advice. If you're able to take it. There's an old cliche of a saying that goes around: find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Would that we could all do that. We're not all so fortunate. Some people just you have to work. You have to work to make a living. You have to work to make money, to put food on the table, to pay the bills, and have a roof over your head. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what happens to so many people is that they get so bound up in their work that they never actually have time to live. And so you're getting up every day, the alarm clock goes off. You get up, you do the same old thing, you go through it, and you're always thinking about tomorrow or reminiscing about yesterday. And it's almost like Eugene Peterson says, so many people spend so much time either looking forward till tomorrow or reminiscing about the past that they're never there today. Look up one day, say, where did it all go? Now, I know that there's nobody here other than myself who has experienced this. But when you get older, you just can't believe how fast time flies. I look back on it, I see these little kids at school. And some of them, I was thinking about this the other day, some of the kids in our K-4, we're able in our school to bend some rules. And really, the law, even in the public schools, the law only requires an age requirement for first grade. So you have to have reached 6 years old by September 1st in order to be in the first grade in the public schools. That's the law. Well, we kind of can fudge a little bit on that. We give people assessments, and but of course, the law doesn't really apply to K4 and K5. And we've got some 3-year-olds in K4. We've got one little girl who's not going to be 4 until January. But she already can write her name. She knows all her alphabet. She knows all her numbers. She's just smart as she can be, and she's doing fantastic. And some of the things these little kids do, we have 3 of them. One of them already turned 4. One of them's about to turn 4. But we started the year with 3 3-year-olds in our school in an all-day program. And I was looking at some of them the other day, and it occurred to me, all of the things that they're learning and all of the experiences that they're having, they won't remember them. Chances are. How many of you remember what was happening when you were 3? Maybe some people. I don't. My memory begins sometime in my 4th year. I can kind of remember things that were happening when I was 4. And then I went to kindergarten when I was 5, and then it starts to get pretty vivid from there on. But most people don't remember. You might remember bits and pieces and little bits when you were 3, but it's kind of rare when you're my age to be able to think back to when you were 3. But when I was 7, 8 years old, that doesn't seem like very long ago at all. It was a long time. And now, I mean, Lordy, I've been here a year and a half. Won't be too long, it'll be 2 years. And it seems like, just like that. Because you put your head down and you start working and you start digging and you start striving and you start going, and you don't take time to stop and, as they say, smell the roses and stop and experience life and enjoy anything. Not that I don't enjoy my work. We all try to enjoy our work, but you know what I'm saying. You get so busy and you get so tied up with everything that you've got to do, and you look up in one day and you say, where did it all go? As preachers, pastor called me a while ago as he was about to get on the airplane, asked me how it went this morning. I said, it went great this morning. It's good. We had a nice long talk. And I didn't tell him, but I'm going to tell him when he gets here. I enjoy preaching. I like it a lot. But I'm just perfectly satisfied not doing it each and every week. and you know, one of these days, I would love to just preach. Just be at a worship service where all I have to do is just preach. I can't remember ever doing that. Every time I've ever been a preacher, it was when, you know, I'm doing the music, or I'm doing this, or I'm teaching a Sunday school class, or I'm doing something. And it's such a busy, the pastor's life is so busy. Thought back all day today, we need to show some appreciation for our pastor. He has a hard job. Being a pastor is a tough job. And when you're a pastor, you live with what we pastors refer to as the relentless return of Sunday morning. And what that means is Sunday always gets here too fast. Because you're trying to get ready for it. You got so many things to do, and as the week is bearing down, you get closer and closer to the weekend. You're trying to put on the brakes. You're trying to slow down time. If only I can buy a few more minutes so I can be ready come Sunday morning. And bang, here it is. And you turn around good, and I used to joke around and say my week was 2 days long. It was Sunday and all the other days. And maybe it's that way on your job too. Work, and then you wake up and you look. That's what he did. He tried to find meaning in his work, and he accomplished great things. He built great cities. He built the temple. He built so many things, and he had so many accomplishments that he could hang his hat on. And let's just say, this book was written by Solomon, son of David, even though his name is not on the book. Anybody that wants to argue about that has no basis for their argument. So he was one of the greatest kings that ever lived in the history of Israel, and he accomplished so much, and when he got to the end, he looked at it and he said, it has no meaning at all. It's just vapor. It's striving after wind. What's it all for? Whatever else religion accomplishes, whatever else the goal of religion might be, one of the things, or one of the goals of religion is to help people find meaning in life. Unfortunately, there are so many religions that help people find the wrong meaning in life. I heard, if you listen to Benny Tate Friday night from the 10, something that he said up there. He was talking about how they took prayer out of schools, and people are saying if you put the prayer back in the schools, you're going to have to let the Muslims pray, the Buddhists pray, and everybody else pray. He said, let them pray. Nothing's going to happen anyhow. It might miss the point a little bit, but there are a lot of different religions, but one of the goals of any religion is to try to help people find meaning in life. Well, the Christian faith is not really a religion so much as it is a relationship, but it does exist for one thing to help us find meaning in life. And guess what? We're not going to find meaning in any of the things that I've just mentioned earlier. Meaning is found in one place and one place only, and that is in a relationship with God. And I find it interesting that all the way through the book of Ecclesiastes, he goes around and around and around, and he pretty much reflects the experience of most all people until he gets down to the very end of chapter 12. Look at chapter 12, beginning in verse 13. It takes him this long to get there. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Well, okay. Fear God and keep his commandments, but isn't there more than that, too? I should hope that life and a relationship with God would be more than just another drudgery. I've got all my other drudgeries, and now I'm going to add one more. I'm going to keep a whole bunch of commandments and make God happy. Hey, that's great. But there's got to be more to it than that, too. Hevel, all is hevel. Vapor, striving after wind. I love what Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15. 1 Corinthians 15, I think the entire chapter, after he has corrected the Corinthian church about this, that, and the other thing, he finally gets down to the root of the matter in chapter 15 and says, basically, those who say there is no resurrection from the dead, if they're right, we're sunk. We are to be pitied most of all. Because not only are we wasting our lives striving after wind and trying to reach out and grab this vapor, as Kohelet says, not only are we doing that, but we're also wasting a very large part of our lives worshiping a God that doesn't exist. We should be pitied. But in fact, Christ has risen from the dead. And that makes all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. See, if you get to the place, because ultimately that is where meaning is found. We can look here, there, and everywhere for meaning, but there's only one place that we're ever going to find it, and we're going to find it in a relationship with the Jesus who rose again from the dead. And when we get to that place, it changes our entire outlook on life. Now we have become the kind of people who, we could do a mundane job every day and still enjoy life. How sad would it be to do a job every day for your entire life that you hate and not have anything else in life but that? Can you just imagine? Get up every morning like the guy in the by the way, have you all seen the Groundhog Day movie? Because that's a very old movie. I know these young guys never seen it. What happened was, he was trapped. He was on Groundhog Day. He was a newsman, and for some reason he got trapped in this loop. So every day it was the same day, just repeated over and over and over again. Same events. It was like deja vu. The whole movie was about that. Wouldn't it be awful to have a life like that? Get up each and every day and go do things that you hate and not have any other reason for living but that. There's no reason for anyone to have to go through that, because if you know Jesus Christ and you know He who is risen from the dead, now all of a sudden it changes everything. And even a person who is, heaven forbid, in prison or something like that, you can still find enjoyment and meaning in life no matter what your circumstances are, because now the meaning of your life is not determined by your circumstances. It is determined by God who raised Jesus from the dead. Changes everything. Over here in chapter 15 of 1 Corinthians, in verse 32, he says, "If after the manner of men I have fought with beasts at Ephesus, what advantageth it me if the dead rise not? Let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die." What he's doing there is he is echoing a very popular philosophy of the day called Epicureanism. And the Epicureans taught that meaning is found only in enjoyment. The best wine, the best food, the best women, the best of everything. If you don't enjoy this life, you're in trouble, because this life is all that there is. So they had a saying: eat, drink, tomorrow we die. And Paul said, you know what? They're right. If Jesus did not rise from the dead, they're right. Think about this. If Jesus did not rise from the dead, why am I spinning my wheels trying to have an addiction recovery ministry at this church? Why would I want to stop anybody from trying to enjoy getting high if Jesus did not rise from the dead? As a matter of fact, why would I not crawl back in the bottle myself and just be a drunk? If Jesus didn't rise from the dead, might as well find as much pleasure as I possibly can. Eat, drink, for tomorrow we die. If Jesus did not rise from the dead. But he did. Go down to verse 58. "Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord." I wonder if when Paul wrote that verse, if he was not in the back of his mind thinking somewhat of Ecclesiastes. Solomon said, "My labor has all been in vain. Hevel, 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 all is hevel. It's nothing but just striving after the wind. It's all in vain." And Paul comes back and says, no, it wasn't. It was not either. Because Jesus rose from the dead, that helps us to know that this is not all there is. This life is not all there is. It doesn't go around and around and around. It doesn't do that. It travels on a line. And before the beginning of human history, what was there? God. And when human history is over, who will be there? God. And along the way, God has this human history timeline, and somewhere along the way on that line, God said, I'm going to pluck Jasmine Evans right here. She's going to have a little place on that line. This is her part. This over here is Jake's part. I'm going to write a chapter in my story, and it's going to be Mike Hudson's chapter. This is his story, his part of the story. Each one of us has a place in the ongoing story of God that doesn't go like this. It goes here, it went there. And along the way, Christ crucified, Christ resurrected, and Christ will come again. We are still looking forward to the second coming of Christ, when he will come back and bring his church with him, his bride, us. We have much to look forward to. Never, ever allow yourself to get pulled into the black hole of depression, thinking that this life is not worth living. It's where I want to go toward the end of this. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced depression, but let me describe it to you in case you haven't. It's like being in a hole. And the farther down in the hole you go, the harder it gets to climb back out. And the lower in the hole you go, the lonelier it gets until you finally get to the place where you don't even want to talk to anybody. And the more that people try to talk you out of the hole, the more you don't want to talk to anybody, and the worse you get and the blacker it becomes. Until you finally get to the place where it's so depressing that it's like life doesn't mean anything. It's not worth living. It's just round and round. No meaning. But there is meaning in a relationship with Jesus Christ. It's this beautiful thing about Christian faith, that it's not about believing things. As I was saying this morning, the really preposterous things that we believe, it would be impossible to believe those things if you did not know Jesus. It would be impossible for me to believe that someday God's going to blow a trumpet and I'm going to fly away to heaven. It would be impossible for me to believe that if I did not know Jesus Christ. The cross would make no sense at all if I did not know Jesus Christ. You can know him. I don't just mean reading about him in the book. You can know him personally. Suddenly, life doesn't go like this anymore. It goes like this. Because you are going where he leads. Hevel, Hevel, all is Hevel? Nope. That's not the way it is. Because indeed, Christ did rise from the dead. Amen. Come on up, team. We're going to sing Amazing Grace, My Chains Are Gone. Altar is open. Anyone needs to pray, why, please feel free to come up and we'll pray. We want to celebrate tonight. We want to close out this day by celebrating the grace of God in Jesus Christ our Lord. Grace.